help someone out who would say, where do I go to see and to learn how the Bible is put together? Can you give some resources, maybe for basic level, person in the church, not a pastor, not a leader, and then maybe a pastor would say, I couldn't do that. I don't know how to piece the Bible together like that. What's a resource for me as a pastor?
Well, the most important thing to do is read the Bible. Surprise, surprise. But that really is the most important thing. So there is a danger in reading the resources so much that you don't read the Bible. I'm going to tell you a secret. My students at Trinity have a love-hate relationship with me. That's because when I teach a course, let's say on Acts and Paul, then they have to read the surrounding literature and some commentaries and biblical theology and all that kind of stuff. But I make them learn the text so well that at the end of the course, I expect them to be able to answer questions like this. What's in Ephesians 5? What comes before the seed stuff in Galatians 3? And in other words, I quiz them constantly, brutal facts. They have to know the facts, and some of them complain and say, do you know that's really undergraduate? Learning all that stuff, memory work. But I worry about preachers going out who've read all the secondary literature and how to put it together and still haven't read the Bible. So I remain an old-fashioned, keep your nose in the text kind of guy. Having said that, there are today increasing numbers of books that help you understand how the whole Bible is put together. One was mentioned by Alistair, Christopher Ashe, who puts it together in a way that draws around the theme of the gathering of God's people. You can write, there are a lot of books that sort of put the themes together on one axis or another. There's one, for example, on temple by Greg Beale that just follows the temple theme throughout the whole Bible. And then, at the risk of sounding like a peddler, I wrote a book a few years ago called The God Who Is There. And it goes through the whole Bible, pitched at about first-year university student and up, for complete biblical illiterates, that is, who don't know anything about the Bible. I even explain the big numbers and the little numbers, chapters and verses. People come into the churches don't know that stuff. The people I evangelize on university campuses have never heard of Abraham. They don't know the Bible has two testaments. They don't know anything. So it begins with nothing, but goes through the Bible in 14 chapters and tries to track. So the first one is the God who makes everything. The second chapter is the God who does not wipe out rebels. It's really fall. The God who writes his own agreements. It's Abrahamic covenant. The God who legislates. It's Moses and the law, and so on, until eventually you have the God who becomes the human being, and then eventually the God who declares the guilty just. And the last two are the God who is very angry and the God who triumphs. So it's going through the whole Bible, roughly sequentially, putting all the themes together in a way that is evangelistic. It's openly evangelistic. There's a study guide for leaders with that and a video series as well. There are lots and lots of resources like that. There's a little book by Vaughan Roberts in St. Ebbe's, an Anglican church in Oxford, England, that at a simpler level does somewhat similar things. There are a lot of resources out there. If you don't know where to start, ask your pastor. He knows everything.